NBC's sitcom, Mr. Mayor aired from January 2021 until its swift cancellation in mid-2022. The series stars Ted Danson as the Los Angeles mayor, although Tina Fey originally planned for the show to be the spin-off to her claim to fame, 30 Rock. Following the popularity of Jack Donaghy, Alec Baldwin was reportedly in negotiations with Fey and her team for over a year before the project fell through. Although Danson's character was a welcome addition and contributed to some series highlights, Mr. Mayor unfortunately fell short of expectations as it couldn't capitalize on the success of 30 Rock, which ended after Season 7. The 18-year-old sitcom's finale in Season 7, Episode 13, Last Lunch, has been accepted as one of the best TV show finales of the decade. Donaghy's character would have continued his life in New York, where he navigates his political agenda from the mayor's office of New York City. There are clear likenesses between the corporate conservative, Jack Donaghy, and Mr. Mayor's opportunistic character, Neil Bremer, and it's interesting to consider what the NBC show could have led to if the plans for the 18-year-old comedy spin-off had gone ahead as intended. Tina Fey's Mr. Mayor was originally supposed to be a 30 Rock Jack Donaghy spin-off. Why the connection was changed. The show eventually settled in Los Angeles to accommodate Danson. Negotiations between Baldwin, Fey, and her creative partner, Robert Carlock, were taking place for over a year before Baldwin later dropped out of the project for unknown reasons, in spite of reprising his role as Jack Donaghy in the virtual special for NBC in 2022. This ultimately changed the direction of the show massively, and the writers were compelled to look for alternatives for their series protagonist. In hindsight, 30 Rock's unconventional satirical humor would be difficult to replicate today, and so the only option was to abandon the spin-off and rework it around another actor. Coming on off the back of The Good Place's momentous success, Ted Danson was the clear contender for the new series lead in Mr. Mayor. However, when Danson refused to relocate to New York City for the role, it meant that the dynamics of the show had to change considerably. The script was reworked to accommodate Danson on the West Coast, consequentially removing any connection it had to 30 Rock to become an entirely fresh project for the comedy duo. How Mr. Mayor's Neil Bremer compares to 30 Rock's Jack Donaghy. Jack Donaghy's influence can be seen in Mr. Mayor's Neil Bremer. Neil Bremer in his home pointing towards the camera in Mr. Mayor. Without a doubt, anyone familiar with 30 Rock will notice the subtle similarities between Jack Donaghy and Neil Bremer. Despite undergoing huge revisions, there are moments in Mr. Mayor where it is transparent that the script was written with Donaghy in mind, which does make Neil's character all that more entertaining to watch. From the gags to the signature one-liners, the first episode establishes Neil as a corporate businessman whose beliefs teeter towards the conservative, and bears a shocking resemblance to Jack Donaghy. Neil Bremer is a wealthy, single-parent father who strives to continue climbing the corporate ladder and earning the praise of his teenage daughter. This makes sense following the 30 Rock finale, where Jack becomes a single parent to his daughter, Liddy. The time span between 30 Rock to Mr. Mayor would mean that Jack's daughter would have been around the same age as Neil's daughter, Orly, Kyla Kennedy. That being said, Neil's character appears to tend more towards spending time with his daughter after his late wife's death, whereas Jack's separation with Avery, Elizabeth Banks, affected his relationship with Liddy. Why Mr. Mayor was cancelled after only 2 seasons. The sitcom doesn't reach the same level of quality as Fey's other projects. Ted Danson as Neil Bremer in a press conference in Mr. Mayor. Arguably, the biggest challenge Mr. Mayor faced in its time on the air was the unavoidable change of direction the show was forced to take after the loss of Baldwin, especially so soon after the global pandemic. A number of shows faced difficulty with ratings post-COVID, regardless, but establishing a new series that recognizes the pandemic within its universe was an even bigger risk. Essentially, audiences turned to the sitcom genre to escape the hardships of daily life, and so crisis realism does not do overwhelmingly well within the format. On the other hand, 30 Rock skyrocketed in popularity beyond its finale in 2013. The Rockefeller hit was helped along the way by having Baldwin's name attached to the project, who was feasibly the biggest star signed onto the project. In addition, the series was broadly influenced by Tina Fey's time on Saturday Night Live, which greatly favored the show's authenticity, as well as appealing to the intended comedic crowd at that time. The Los Angeles political sitcom sadly couldn't thrive without Jack Donaghy's well-established lead, resulting in mediocre ratings that led to Mr. Mayor's cancellation after just 2 seasons.